What is up, and welcome to this episode of Ratio FFL. That's Real Actions Today, Inspire Others, Fit for Life podcast. Your host, Coach Michael Vorpal. Today's topic, all right, it's about those couples out there. Those couples out there that, seem to be at each other's throats. Seem to be, hey, you asked me to help you out with this, with your nutrition. You asked me to help keep you accountable in working out. You asked me to force yourself to go for a walk. And really, those who maybe aren't at each other's throats too. And one thing that I've realized in this journey and working with my significant other towards her goals is that sometimes it can get frustrating. This is my passion. This is a huge priority of my life. And, her passions and priorities might not align with mine, and mine don't align with hers. They just don't align together. And that's the first and foremost thing. Sometimes the priorities aren't going to align together. And that's actually 100% okay. So in this episode, I want to kind of uncover some different topics and some different ways of thinking and how to go about this so that maybe things are a little less stressful, right? They're not going to be fucking awesome or 100% perfect, but these are ways and just things that you can remind yourself so that when that frustration maybe sets in, it's not as bad as it could have been, or it could be a little bit better than before, because let's face it, perfection, that's just insanity. We're never going to get there. So we're not going to expect to be perfect. We're going to expect to grow together, not only through this podcast, but hopefully this brings enough value or a different way of looking at things so that you can take that part of your guys' relationship to the next level in the term of health, wellness, fitness. All right. So that's the goal of this one, to grow a supportive relationship without tearing each other apart or tearing each other down, and maybe find a way to truly understand how to support one another through your different journeys, okay? Because that's what it is. This is a fitness journey, and it's a journey for life, but it's emotional and spiritual at the same time. All right, so one thing I noticed, and here's a little bit more about me, is I'm very goal-oriented. I've realized that if I don't have a goal, if I don't have a set objective, that I am kind of lost and I don't like it. I'm not structured and I get this uneasy feeling, okay? And that's not the way it is with my significant other. She's very go with the flow, and she has like big macro goals, like have a great life and, just spend a life together and all of that, and potentially build a family and this and that, and which is phenomenal. I greatly appreciate that. There's nothing wrong with that. But I am more specified in my goals, right? So I share those same goals with her, right? But I get very particular. So I think a better way to put of what I'm describing is I'm very detail goal oriented, if that makes sense. Or yes, I care about the macro, but what smaller goals do I need to hit to make the macro happen? Does that make sense? That's just how my brain processes, but that's not how her brain processes. She's happy with, I got a home, I got this, I got that. She's building a home and all of that. And that is one thing, I used to get extremely frustrated with. I used to be like, all right, cool. And this just recently happened again where, this is a fresh realization for myself. And I think a lot of others go through this is if one of you, doesn't matter who it is, if one partner or another is very micro, smaller goal oriented, that feeds into the bigger goals, right? Like, for example, I want to save $10 a week, which equals $40 a month, which equals, and so on and so on, a couple $100s a year. And that's how we're going to build a savings. That is an idea or a point to look at, okay, a micro goal, but it feeds into the bigger goal of what? Saving money, right? So that's just a quick example of how it works, where people are just like, I'm just going to save money. I don't have an actual plan, but it's kind of frustrating for me because I like to see results. I like to see progress. I like to see the progression. And I had to take a step back. Truthfully, I had to take a step back because there was nothing wrong with, my significant other thinking, hey, or there's nothing wrong with the person in your life saying, hey, this is my big goal. I don't have little goals. I just go with the flow and make best with the things and stuff like that, where, that's right, wrong, indifferent. That's all personal opinion. But what I have learned is that it's not necessarily a bad thing. Because, I tend to over worry too. I tend to analyze. I tend to overanalyze. I tend to do all of these things. And, well, that can lead to a lot more stress. So it could be less stressful. Though what we want to look for is balance. Now, how do you balance that? Goal-oriented person, not goal-oriented person, all right? Or small micro-oriented, macro-oriented. Like, yo, it's fine. I just want a life together, you know? So how do we balance that? By just being accepting and trying to understand that about each other. Like, hey, why do you just worry about the macro? Why do you just worry about this big goal of, saving money instead of the plan to actually save money? Why is that? And then vice versa. If you're the big macro person, you want to be able to sit back and be like, hey, why are you worried so much about saving week to week when we know we're going to save money in the big haul? Like, why do you do that? Now, you have to be accepting of their answer, okay? You can't be like, you're right, I'm wrong, or I'm wrong, you're right. You can't do that, okay? You have to be accepting of the answer because that's how you build a team together. Understanding how people work. Now, for example, I understand that my significant other operates that way. So to talk about the micro plan with her, it's not going to be a thing. And that's okay because I know that she is working towards that end goal. Okay? As long as we don't regress, either of us don't regress to go away from that goal, does it really matter? You can control what you do and they're going to control what you do, but if you're both mutually supporting the same goal together, then that's awesome. How does that work into fitness though? At the same time, that goes into the fitness realm of, hey, me personally, this is me, I need to track my food in order to maintain results or get results because my intuitive eating skills being like, oh, yep, that's about right for my food today, it's not there, okay? Where my significant other, she can rather go off of, okay, I have a protein, I have a carb, I have a veggies, because the micro of tracking every little thing is overwhelming for her. So she doesn't like that. It's not fun anymore, okay? She likes to rather make those macro observations about her diet and her nutrition and then go from there. That's a way to do it. But for me, in my brain, because I'm analytical, I'm like, I want the most accurate, where she's like, hey, at least I'm just in the right direction. And now I know, so I can support her in that and not being like, look, you're like, I don't understand. Like, why don't you want the best results? Does that make sense? So on that note, guys, you have to be willing to understand and not go in saying you're right and they're wrong. On both sides, whatever part of the relationship you're in, you can't do that because then it's just going to lead to a whole bunch of like demotivational things. I don't want to do it. Added pressure, more pressure. Don't want to do it. Then you get into all this. So you want to be able to be accepting of the other person's thought process. Okay. And it's okay that one might be extremely goal oriented, but looking at the micro goals, the goals to reach the big goal, right? And others are just worried about the big goal. Both are okay. You have to be accepting of one another and understand one another there. All right. Next thing is priority level. Priority, I briefly mentioned this earlier. Priority for me is my health, wellness, and fitness. Okay? Why? Because I'm a nutritional coach. I'm a personal trainer. I'm a Marine. I get evaluated twice a year on 2 different physical fitness tests. Like, it has been a part of my life for the last 12 years. And very much so because there's a little skin in the game in order to get promoted and stuff like that. In my career field, in the Marine Corps, I have that urgency. I have that priority in order to get promoted, in order to be in better physical shape. Not so much for my significant other. It has never been a priority where something is riding independent on the physical fitness and physical ability. In her journey along with mine, and what we share together is the way we look and feel about ourselves, and then how we look and feel to others, right? Like, that does not go away. But there's nothing wrong with the priority level being a little lower for one or both of you. I mean, and then eventually you get to a point where, okay, it is the priority. For me, this is very powerful. It's a very high priority for me because I have had stuff riding on it, right? Whereas my significant other, they are just doing it to maintain health, wellness, the way they look, what have you, confidence. And then when they reach it, it's not so much a priority, where mine is the long game. I have to maintain this set of standards for the next 8 years minimum so I can retire out of the Marine Corps in 20 years. So I have to maintain that. Plus, now a coach, I'm going to feel like a hypocrite if I don't maintain it, and it's a passion of mine. So I would challenge everyone, every significant other, right? If you're having this feeling of just like, yo, why isn't it a higher priority? And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just trying to understand. Like, because this is very important to me. Why isn't it as important or high up on your priority list? And you might find out maybe because you guys chose to have a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad, their priority became that house and that household and taking care of it so that the person who's putting food on the table doesn't have to worry about it. And that's their priority and not themselves. Okay? But you won't know that unless you have that conversation, and you have to respect that. Being like, hey, look, do they have good intentions with their priorities or not good intentions with their priorities? But it's their priorities, and you just have to try and understand them. Okay, so that's the other thing. Priorities, they're always going to change for you, yeah? They're always going to change for you. You have to respect and support one another and where they're at in their priority list. Okay? Then we got, you can't get wrapped up in the fact, and I've mentioned this a lot, but I just want to hit on it again, and I've mentioned it in passing, right and wrong. There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. There's the here and now, and how do we support each other. All right, so the last thing you want to do is be at each other's throat, like you're right, I'm wrong, or I'm wrong, you're right, or you're wrong, I'm right. That's the last thing you want to do, because that just leads to a fight, guys. Okay, now look, I'm notorious for this. I am at fault for this as well. So this one is extremely important to me. You can't get wrapped up in right and wrong. You got to get wrapped up in how can I help and support. And here's the other thing, and I struggle with this as well sometimes, then I have to consciously remind myself, they will ask for help if they need it. And if they say, no, I'm good, no, I'm fine, you may know deep down that something isn't right. You might know deep down that something's distracting them and they're full of potential to, eat better or actually go for that walk, actually go work out. They said they want to do it themselves. Like, something's about it, but if they're processing shit on their own, and you got to just be there and support them through that processing process. Because eventually they'll get there. Eventually they'll be able to say, hey, I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to rock and roll. In fact, it's surprising to me it took so long for me to, put this all together, is as a coach, a lot of people, when they reach out to me, they're like, yo, I'm finally ready. I'm finally in the right mind space to make this a priority, to work on this, and to finally achieve the goals. I'm finally in a mental state, an emotional state, a spiritual state in which I feel comfortable enough to tackle this on and make it a priority for myself. And the same thing applies to you in the significant other role. All you can do is express concern and just say, hey, out of love, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about that, just so you know I'm here for you. And a lot of the times that's going to do good, but unfortunately it took me, in the not so distant past, myself to set my pride apart, set my pride aside and realize, yo, I wasn't taking in consideration the other person, okay? Because I know typically I'm right, not to toot my own horn, typically I'm right, typically I get results, and typically, this process works. And it's hard for me to see someone not want to do the process where they know they work, especially someone, who's a personal trainer, who is a nutritionist. But I got to respect that. I got to respect her. I got to respect my partner. I got to respect my significant other. That's all the same person here, okay? I got to respect her and where she's at in her priorities, and where she's at with how she is oriented with goals, and where she's at with, not wanting to know who's right and who's wrong. I have to respect that of her. And I have to put my pride aside. So here is another tidbit for you guys. Set your pride aside. Set your pride aside and just listen. Ask and listen. And you have to be accepting or wanting to hear the answer and know the answer though. All right? So my final thought is, quit destroying yourself in your relationship because you failed to open yourself up to truly understand the other person. And oh, by the way, this applies to everything, not just this fitness topic. This applies to everything. Finances, family, discipline, whatever it is, applies to everything. All right? So ask yourself, how are you all going to work together? On that note, much love. Thank you for tuning in, and it's time to go crush it.